Up next, two Upper Peninsula sportsmen who took part in an effort to thwart large increases in hunting and fishing license fees will speak out about last week's announcement there was money in the Fish and Game Fund. Well, folks, this year we were being threatened by the DNR with all kinds of closures and conservation officers being laid off and all kinds of things if we didn't raise those hunting and fishing license fees. They need the money. Well, a couple of weeks ago, a number of conservation people, and three of them from the Upper Peninsula, went down to Lansing and dealt with the legislature and, of course, met with the governor, and they came to an agreement to give the DNR the money from the general fund to support them for next year until they can find a long-term answer to their problem. And then comes this announcement that they had $10 million. They knew they had the $10 million bucks. They had it in a sort of a rainy day fund, and the explanation is a bit complicated. But two of those people that were involved in that whole meeting, Dale McNamee and Rory Matson, they were involved in that whole process. They felt betrayed. And last week, I spoke to them. Well, Dale, where do we begin? Last week, you guys went down to Lansing and met with the governor and several key legislators and sporting groups like MUCC, and, of course, you as the head of the Upper Peninsula Sportsmen's Alliance representing them, and as well as representative for Tom Casperson. You went down there, and you got some results.
We thought we had results. I'm not quite sure where we are right now at this day as we speak. But we had some good conversations with the governor. They had some good conversations with the legislators. We assumed about, I guess maybe Tuesday of this week or somewhere in there, that there was some movement from the governor's office along with Joe Sheltron to bring back some monies to the DNR because they were in a big deficit. We've been hearing about this deficit. In fact, almost a year ago in February, I talked to Becky Humphreys. I told her at that point in time that we would be very happy to do something to make sure that they could continue to exist, give a 25% raise across the board, and give us 2 years to find a long-term funding solution. They went along with their own plan of the very ridiculously high license increases that they said they had to have. They haven't left that particular agenda. And we find out now, in the last few days, that they actually have a $10 million surplus, which they knew in July. They call that a rainy day fund. My problem is how long or how much rain do we have to have before we use it? There's a lot of questions that are up here right now that cast an awful lot of questions out there that I'm not sure I can really answer for you at this time, Buck.
Where are we going from here?
Where are we going from here? I sure would like to know. I think our legislators certainly have to be questioning the information that they were given. This, as far as I'm concerned, when Tim Gabosik asked me last night how I felt, I said disillusioned, disgusted, disturbed, dismayed. There's not enough D's in the dictionary to describe how I feel, because I'm looking at the fact that all through this summer and all through all of these discussions that they've had on their so-called license increase, we've been threatened. We've been told you're going to lose this, you're going to lose this, you're going to lose this. We have been fooled, I guess. I think about the department employees that they left hang out to dry. Some of these people wondering, do I have a job tomorrow? And this has been done with some impunity as far as I'm concerned, and not really even taking into consideration their thoughts, their feelings. The sportsmen and women of this state is short a time ago as last Tuesday when we were down there with the governor, took on their cause and said, okay, if you're $2.5 million out, we'll try to do this. And we went over and we talked to our legislators. We talked to the governor, and we did it on their behalf, not knowing that the information we were giving them was not true. This is a heck of a predicament to be in.
You think the NRC knew what was going on 6 months ago?
No. I don't believe they knew it 6 months ago in July. I believe they knew it probably in October. But even after that point, they were still going along with the same program, handing out the same papers, with the same information, with the same threats of what they were going to take away. A great deal of my problem has to do with the fact that, you know, we've asked and we've asked, let's do something for long-range funding. We have to have something out there. And in all this time, in fact, I suggested the Missouri plan to Kay Cool 10 years ago. And we were just kind of blown off.
You know, all your hard work last week down in Lansing, meeting with the governor and you and Dale and with key legislators and, of course, other outdoor sportsmen's groups, and came up with what I thought was an agreement anyway, and now look what's just happened.
Well, as you well know, Buck, the Delta Conservation District last March has been FOIAing 3 agencies, the DNR, the DEQ, and MDA. We know that there's a lot more money down there than what anybody's talking about. We started this on March 5th, 2007. We have yet to receive all our information. We've paid for it. We're ready to get attorneys. A good example is a whole bunch of people went down last week. MUCC had a meeting set up with the governor. I represented the Michigan Conservation Districts at that. We bought into a philosophy to help the DNR out. $2.5 million was said was needed to get them out of trouble before January 15th, or they'd have to lay off people within the parks, the conservation officers, the foresters, the biologists, and the closed ski trails, and on and on and on. We pretty much knew that there was money in this fund that they said was depleted. We asked people to check into it. Obviously, we heard yesterday that there's a good $10 million, if not more, in this fund. I believe that the citizens of Michigan were dubbed. We're totally lied to by the department. They're playing a shell game with restricted funding versus other things. They're saying that now they still have to do some things because even though this one pot has a bunch of money in it, then they can't access it from other pots. But the problem with that being, they asked one of the representatives, Joel Sheltron, to put money into that pot because that was the one that was depleted.
Which is the fish and game one.
Yes, now we find out that there's an excess in there from last year. Then they're using excuses that they had to wait for the legislative people to balance the budget and all these kind of things. Well, that was known on September 30th, and I think we knew it before that. And the news articles have came out. The director's been on television, radios. I mean, I've seen it in print all over, you know, help us, you know, we really need this. And it was a direct lie to the citizens of Michigan. And the other thing that the conservation districts are very upset about is if you look what the 70% of the non-industrial private landowners own the land in this state. That's 50% of the timber base in this state is owned by that. And a measly $1 million goes to that management, and the DNR has constantly tried to pull that $1 million. And if you want to know how it affects the resource base, there's a $13 billion timber industry. And $8.5 billion comes from those non-industrial private landowners. $1.3 billion hunting industry that the DNR, you know, gets license fees from. 65% of the game is on private land, non-industrial private land. So that's about $850 million of the $1.3 billion. And there doesn't seem to be any attention paid to that. There's, as far as I'm concerned, there's agendas within the Department of Natural Resources, and they're running them all the way, and they owe the people of this state a great apology, and I think the director on down should be removed from office.
Wow. What do you think, though, we need to do now to go forward?
I'm hoping that MUCC, being the largest wildlife group and representing a lot, will be totally upset. I think they went out on a limb for the department. I think they were dubbed and lied to, unless they knew it all along. I don't know. But I think there should be a gigantic meeting pulled together, and we should really do what Keith Charters said he set out to do, and that was to have a conservation summit, bring partners together, and look at the resources. Let's really look at the resources, not how to fund departments. I have attended 3 of those meetings, and the only thing I've seen out of those meetings is how to fund the DNR and the DEQ. That's not what this is about. It's looking at our resource base and how do we properly fund it and how do we promote it and make a future for natural resources in Michigan. Not absolutely is what's going on now. It shouldn't be about funding agencies.
Well, we haven't heard the last on that issue.